Hey class, today we're going to learn/review how to graph on a coordinate plane. So we're going to have a coordinate plane composed of two axes. We have the x-axis and the y-axis. Our x-axis will always be horizontal and the y-axis will always be vertical. So here's kind of what our coordinate plane looks like. Horizontal axis x, vertical axis y, and then I've labeled each corner with a Roman numeral, and these are what we call quadrants, hence 4 of them. So we start in our upper right hand corner and then go counterclockwise, so quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then another key point to point out would be the origin, and that's where the x and the y axes cross. Okay, so there's your coordinate plane with your quadrants. So when we have a coordinate plane, we also have what we call a coordinate point. This is also sometimes referred to as an ordered pair, but it's in parentheses and it goes x comma y in that order always. So the x is going to tell you how far in which direction you move left or right, and then the y will tell you up and down. So here I have some points that we're going to graph on our coordinate plane. So I labeled them with letters so that we can label them on the graph as well. So I'm going to do, actually I'll just show you all of them and then we'll talk through them. So 6 comma 1, remember 6 is that x value, so it's going to, since it's positive, we're going to go to the right. So we go over 6 units and then up 1. Okay. B is -2, which is to the left 2. So we always start at the origin and go left 2, and then we go down 3, and I labeled that with a B. C is 5 to the right, and then down 2. And then you can look at D and E. Okay, when we talk about our x and our y axes, we also have independent and dependent variables that go along with this. So independent variables is our input, which is the x value. So we have control over that. We can change that. And then we have the dependent variable, which is not in our control. It depends on the x value, but that dependent value or variable is the y variable. It's also known as the output. So we're asked to graph this equation. Well, it has x's and y's, and we now know how to graph points. So in order to graph, we're going to have to make an xy table. Well, when we make an xy table, we choose those independent variables. Those are the ones that we have the say or decision in. So I'm going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2 as my x values. And then to get the y, they depend on this equation, or they depend on what we plug in for x. So to get my y value for -2, I plug -2 in here. Well, 4 times -2 would be -8, plus 2 is -6. Likewise for -1, 4 times -1 would be -4, plus 2 is a -2, and so forth. So here's our xy table. Now these are those ordered pairs or that coordinate point. So -2, -6. So I start -2, -6. Then I go -1, -2 from this point. 0, 2 would be I don't go left or right, I just go straight up 2. 1, 6, and 2, 10. And then I draw a line. So that's how we would graph our line or our equation. Then lastly, we're going to have some scenarios, more like real life scenarios, where we have to decide the independent and dependent variables. So sometimes we'll use equations like our last example, and sometimes they'll look like this. So we have to determine which is independent, which is dependent. We have the number of traffic violations, so like speeding tickets, and then the cost of your car insurance. Well, you get to decide how often you speed or if you roll through a stop sign. So the independent variable is the number of traffic violations. That directly affects our dependent variable. So our dependent variable would be the cost of our car insurance. Okay, that car insurance price depends on how many times you get pulled over. Here we have our electric bill and the amount of electricity we use. So again, what do you have control over? Well, you can control how often you keep the lights on or how long you watch TV. So your independent variable would be the amount of electricity used. that means your dependent variable is going to be that bill that you get in the mail.